Hello and welcome everyone. In today's video, we are going to have a look at one deadly trap against one e4. Now this is a killer opening trap which will help you win a lot of game against any beginner player. So let's get started. It starts with e4, black responds symmetrically with e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and we have seen a normal move for here as black is to play the bishop to c5 or play the knight to f6, which sooner or later transposes to the same position. But here we are going to play our pawn to f5. Now pawn f5 at first looks like black is doing a blunder. What is this move? Opening up the diagonal in front of the king where you would want to castle your king. But I want you to think here as white and tell me, if your opponent plays something like this with you, what would be your natural response or what would you do? So according to the databases, I have seen that thousands of players play the knight to c3. Some play their pawn to d3, and a most common response here from white is to capture on the f5 square. Now, to your surprise, none of this move is correct. The only correct and best response for white here is to play the pawn to d4. But if white is not well aware with the theory of this, then no one is going to play pawn to d4, and this trap will help you win a lot of games in future. So now first let's have a look at what happens if they play their knight to c3. After knight c3, trying to defend the e4 pawn, we are going to capture the pawn. The knight captures it back. And after pawn d5, it is all done for white. We are going to win one of the minor pieces just on the fifth move. White can't do much over here and eventually black will win the game. Okay, now let's look at what is the most common response. The most common response here is to play the pawn to d3 or capture on the f5 square. After d3, we will be playing normally. We'll play our bishop to c5, trying to develop our pieces. Now here there's a juicy square for knight to come in. Knight can come on g5 and can come on f7 to fork your queen and the rook. Naturally, white would want to do that, want to play their knight to g5, trying to aim at f7 square. Here, you cannot capture this knight because the bishop is protecting it and the diagonal of bishop is open. So let's just play our pawn to f4. Now the idea behind pawn f4, you will see that in a moment, but right now is to break the connection between this bishop and the knight. Here, white would naturally want to go for f7. Why not to go f7 when he can give a fork to our queen and rook and win one piece eventually? But as black, we are going to go aggressively. We are going to play our queen to h4, aiming for his king directly, trying to attack on the f2 square, which will be a scholar's mate. So here, white will castle, and after he castles, play a knight to f6. If white goes with his idea and captures the rook on the h8 square, then we play this killer knight g4. Now the idea behind knight g4 is to attack on h2. Queen h2 will be a checkmate. Also to put some more pressure on the f2 square. Your bishop, queen and knight. All of the pieces are aiming at the f2 square. Since h2 is going to be a checkmate, he will defend it by playing his pawn to h3. That's the only way possible, and you can capture on f2 with your knight. When the rook captures it, obviously rook will have to capture it because the queen is in danger and this is a discovered attack on the king. It's a discovered check on the king. So when rook captures it back, you capture it with the queen and king goes on h1. Now here, if it looks like black is out of attack and is doing just fine, don't have any more attacks and white can continue this game on to f3. The idea behind f3 is to give a checkmate on g2 square, and if queen captures on f3, then queen g1 will be a checkmate. So queen will have to be on the d1 square and naturally he will have to capture on the f3 square. Once he does that, you play a pawn to d5. You are attacking his bishop as well as opening up the diagonal for this bishop to jump in. He saves his bishop, captures the pawn on the d5 square, then bishop h3, and this checkmate is unstoppable. If he tries to defend the checkmate on the g2 square with his queen on d2, then queen g1 will be a checkmate. And if he comes on queen g1, then you capture the queen on the g1 square and that will be a checkmate. Okay, so now coming back few moves, let's see what if they play the most natural looking move, capture on the f5 square with their e-pawn. If that happens, then we will be playing our pawn to e4, attacking the knight. Now look at this knight. The knight cannot go anywhere except the home square, which is on g1, because d4, e5 is under attack by your knight, as well as the queen is taking control of the h4 and g5 square. So knight cannot go to any of these four squares and will have to go back. If some players tries to act smart and would want to pin your pawn by playing their queen to e2, Then you unpin it just by playing your queen to e7. Now the threat is renewed. The knight is in danger and he'll have to defend it. The only safe square for the knight to go is to go back on the g1 square. And then we play a knight to f6, protecting the e4 pawn. Here, naturally, what we have seen, most of the players play their pawn to d3. And then you don't capture the pawn on d3 square here, but you play your knight to d4. Now, knight to d4 gives an attack to the queen as well as to the c2 square, which will be a fork. He has to defend his queen. Wherever he goes, he goes on the d2 square or d1 square, you are going to capture on the c2 square, giving a fork. When queen captures the knight on c2, then a discovered check and you win the queen. This is called as the Rousseau Gambit. Okay, so these were 3 common errors which white can make and are most common because those are kind of the natural moves. Now let's have a look at the best response from the white side. The best response is to play the pawn to d4. When he plays his pawn to d4, you are going to capture it on the d4 square. If the knight captures it, then we will be playing our knight to f6, trying to attack the e4 pawn. If now he tries that he is winning our one more pawn on the f5 square with his knight, well, then we have pawn to d5, attacking the bishop as well as the knight. Here, mostly what players do is they capture on the d5 square, trying to attack our knight. When we capture the knight, they can capture us back. But you can capture the queen with a check. The king goes in and now you can attack the white king various ways. Look at this black pieces. All are well developed while his pieces are kind of stuck on the home rank till now. Here you can go with the long castle, give a check. The bishop blocks the check by playing on the d2 square and then you can play on knight to g4, attack on f2. Let's see the continuation of the game. What happens here? This position is completely equal for black. If I were to choose a side, I would definitely choose. Here, white is not doing bad, but black is ahead in development. So, after he captures on b7, you can capture it back with the king. King comes up, you play a bishop to c5, attacking the f2 square. He plays his pawn to f3, trying to defend it. Then, we can first play our rook to e8, give a check, the king goes back, and now you play your knight to e3. Again a check. When the bishop captures it, you don't need to capture the bishop back immediately, but you can go with your rook to d1 and you are winning. So this was the Rousseau Gambit. Powerful killer trap from the black side to play against one e4. I hope you guys practice this and will try to play against any of your beginner player and would win the game eventually. Stay tuned for more such opening traps. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to get more such content. Thank you.